welcome back to episode 20 of From the Couch Sports. My name is Connor and I'm your host today. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe to the video. We're going to get into it. I've got a bunch of different topics we want to cover. To start things off, I want to talk about the season that Nikola Jokic just had. He won his back-to-back MVP, and this has kind of stirred up a lot of critics and controversy on the internet as of late. Nikola Jokic averaged 27.1 points per game, which I believe was a career high, 13.8 rebounds per game, and 7.9 assists. And, most of these stats were better than last season, where he also won the MVP. So if you're looking at stats, then it's understandable why he was the MVP. The other thing is his second best player was injured. Jamal Murray was hurt the entire year, didn't play at all. And he still willed them into the playoffs. And, I think that a large portion of NBA fans, they don't really, because of the way that the MVP rules are, it seems like the goal line changes for who the MVP is every year. One year it might seem like it's the best player in basketball, where another year it might seem like this guy had the best statistical season, so he won MVP. It seems like the definition of who the MVP is kind of changes year to year among the NBA. The year that Russell Westbrook won the MVP, that was clearly because of, a historic achievement statistically. He had averaged a triple-double, something that hadn't been done in, I think, over 50 years since Oscar Robertson. So, I understand why some fans might be a little bit upset. But at the end of the day, you can't knock Jokic. He had a phenomenal year, and even if he wasn't going to be MVP, he probably would have been runner-up. So if it's a close race, then it's one of those things you can't be upset with the outcome, and it's one of those things with sports. If the game is close, you can't be upset that a referee is the reason that you're losing the game, or if you're fighting, if you go to decision, you can't be upset that you went to decision with the outcome. It's one of those things. As fans, obviously from a player perspective, if you're Joel Embiid, you probably think you won MVP. You thought you had the best year of your career. You were the healthiest you've been in your whole career, and you had some of the best numbers you've ever put up, while also carrying your team among, a lot of other things going on with the whole Ben Simmons and him getting traded for Harden mid-season. So, if you're Embiid, I completely understand. But also, the NBA hasn't laid out firmly, this is what deserves the MVP from year to year. It seems like those things change every few seasons. Most valuable player to their individual team, you can make the argument Jokic is that guy. The Nuggets are not in the playoffs if it wasn't for Jokic. Obviously, they're not here now, so I think that raises some other kind of concerns, because they're giving out an MVP to a guy who's sitting at home, watching the playoffs from home, and it's understandable that he won MVP, but in my opinion, the MVP award should be given out before the playoffs. And I understand that if you do that, then obviously entering the playoffs, whoever won the MVP, there's a lot more weight that goes into that. But what happens is here we are in the middle of the playoffs. Everything's going on. We're a couple games away from the conference finals. And the guy who just won the MVP isn't playing. So everybody's talking about these guys that are playing right now. Giannis is playing. He's amazing right now. And it's so there's a reason that there's a regular season MVP, but there's also an NBA Finals MVP, and that guy is usually the MVP of the entire playoffs. So, for example, the year that the Raptors won the championship, that year Kawhi Leonard was the best player in basketball in the playoffs. He didn't win MVP, and when they ended up giving the MVP in the middle of Kawhi's all-time playoff performance, it's dude, Kawhi's the best player right now. But at the same time, it's they're two separate seasons basically. There's the playoffs and then there's the regular season. So you can't knock the NBA for who the award goes to. I do think that maybe setting some firm, rules to how the award is won, like what they are looking for. I think that would be nice. And then also like just giving the award out a little bit earlier. I don't think it hurts too much. I think that you can have it stand individually. If they give this before the playoffs, it's like, yeah, Jokic just took his team to the playoffs. And now it's like, I mean, people see like the Sixers lose the first couple games to the Heat. Embiid comes back and then they win a couple, and it's like, okay, Embiid is that dude too. And like there's a reason that he was in the running for MVP. So like I get there's two sides to it, and I totally understand. I don't think people should be like super disappointed in this. I've seen a lot of people say this is like Steve Nash winning over Kobe, and I kind of disagree with that. Steve Nash winning over Kobe, I get that argument too. I think Kobe should have had more MVPs in his career. But Jokic, like this dude does things on the basketball court that we haven't seen from anybody of that size. He's not the greatest athlete, not at all. But he's gonna go in. He's gonna get you a ton of rebounds. He's incredible on offense, and he's like the best big man passer that we've maybe ever seen. And so like you got to give him some credit for how great he is. And like the game of basketball, it's not all just about athleticism and who's the flashiest player in basketball. Otherwise, Jokic wouldn't have won MVP last year either. But like and like to talk on Embiid had a great season. This is the most games he's played in his career, 68 games. He averaged 30.6 points per game, which I think was a career high, 11.7 rebounds per game. So like, I mean, he was awesome. I like to get into the Heat 76ers series. This is a series currently we're sitting 3-2. The Heat are up. The series started so Embiid is he's a warrior, man. He's been playing through injuries constantly. I think he's got some kind of hand injury currently that he's playing through, and then he had a fractured orbital and a concussion, and the concussion was really the main thing that held him out. So he doesn't play the first two games. The Heat kind of win those games easily, and then Embiid comes back for games 3 and 4. Game 3 was actually a closer game, and Embiid didn't have like the craziest stat line or anything, but you could tell like the guy makes a difference when he's on the court. And then game 4 they were able to win that before getting blown out in game 5. So now we're going into game 6. This is back in Philadelphia. Joel Embiid has a great opportunity to push this to 7 games, and I think there's a good chance that does happen. And I mean, you got to give the guy some credit. He's literally playing with the face mask. Like in orbital, obviously this is basketball, so you're not really like getting your eye hit a lot. But like a broken orbital in any kind of martial art, like MMA or boxing, that's something that completely stops the fight. Like, for example, the Canelo fought Billy Joe Saunders, I think in his last year. His eye swelled up, and that turned out to be an orbital. And like if that fight would have kept going, they were saying like he might not have been able to see from that eye again. And so obviously, like Embiid's not getting punched in the eye, so that's not as big of a concern. But just to see him going through that kind of injury, like the stuff he's dealing with, I don't think anybody would fall blame on him to call it quits on the season. Let's come back next year, have some more chemistry with Harden, and maybe I want to come back in healthy and make another run for things. But yeah, I'm like. So him being the runner-up, I think that's totally understandable. And I mean they're in a very good spot. They could push this series 7 games. I'm curious to see how that goes. I'm a Heat fan, so I want to see the Sixers get blown off the court. But Embiid's one of my favorite players too, so I'm not I want to see the Heat win, but also I want to see Embiid succeed. So it's a funny thing to look at. And then some of the other series going on, the Mavericks Suns series. This has been interesting. Like Luka is one of the best players in basketball as well. The thing is the Mavs just don't have a lot of talent. Like they don't have the talent that's going to help him win a championship. Like the way things look now, it kind of reminds me of the Dirk teams that they had for years, where you got good enough talent to be like 3, 4, 5 seed in the West every single year. you're winning one, maybe two playoff series, but you're not going to be able to get over the hump. Unless Luka just does something insane and drops 40, 50 points a game, something like that, it's just going to be hard. Like, even some of these games, Luka drops 40 and they lose. And that's like the supporting cast around Luka is not the best. When they went back to home for games 3 and 4, though, like the supporting cast played great. They were hitting everything. The Suns, like Chris Paul had a down game, a lot of turnovers in one game, and then he had foul trouble in the other that kind of caused some of that momentum to shift. But then they were able to take game 5, so they bring it back to game 6 in Dallas tonight. That's going to be an interesting game. I would say this is probably favored to the Suns. Like, the Suns are a very good team when they're clicking. Obviously, like, Luka can go off on any night. But if they're able to kind of eliminate some of the mistakes that they had, if Chris Paul can stay out of foul trouble and, not have a bad game, like, they should be able to win this, push to the Western Conference Finals, where in all likelihood they're going to play the Warriors. Like, to get to the Warriors Grizzlies series, this is tough, man, because I thought that this would be the best series. Like, at this point in the playoffs, at least, I thought there was a very good chance this was going to go 7 games, and then unfortunately, Ja Morant hurts his knee. He's got like a bone bruise, I think that the injury is. So they're saying he's pretty much done for the year, or for the playoffs at least. That's tough, because like, Ja is just such an entertaining player. There were multiple games in the playoffs this year where he just took over the game at the end, like won the game on his shoulders. And like, that's what you love to see in basketball. Like, you love to see greatness, and you love to see guys like, the new generation just take over, and it's awesome. And you don't like to see injuries. Like, injuries suck. It kills playoffs. Like, if you could just, obviously this isn't a video game, if you could turn injuries off and not have to deal with any injuries in the playoffs, that would be amazing. Like, literally, playoff series are dictated based on who's healthier. And like, the Warriors are a very good basketball team. We just saw them, like, I think they ended up only winning by 35 or 40. But there was one point last night where they are up by 50 points over the Warriors. Warriors pulled Steph Curry, all their starters. They're like, we're not even going to get close to coming back. And like, it just shows the firepower that Memphis has. They have a lot of talent. But without Ja, it's just like, they're probably going to lose and let the Warriors move on. It's unfortunate. I hate to see injuries like this, especially on a young team that, like, in honesty, the Grizzlies could compete to win it all this year if Ja was healthy. And obviously, like, the Warriors series is going to be close, healthy or not. But if he's healthy, I like their chances a lot more than, obviously, with him being out. It's kind of tough. But moving on. Actually, I'll touch on the Celtics Bucks game yesterday. Was crazy. Marcus Smart just won Defensive Player of the Year. He's awesome. But like, Drew Holiday, oh my gosh, man, this guy is incredible. So like, it's funny because I'll be the first to say, when Drew Holiday went to the Bucks, I was telling people, like, Drew Holiday is not going to be enough to get Giannis a ring. Like, Giannis maybe should have gone to a different team, like, to try to compete for a ring. I don't think adding Drew Holiday does too much to them. And I was wrong. I was completely wrong. And not only does he do a lot, like, there's moments in the game where he's taking games over. And he just did this last night against the Celtics in Boston. Like, Drew Holiday, he hits a 3 to tie the game. And then Giannis goes to the free throw line. I think they were down. They're still down at this point. And Giannis hits one. They go down one. And then he misses the other. And Bobby Portis, another dude who had a phenomenal playoff performance last year, gets the board, puts it back up. They go up by 1. And then it's like, dang, this is crazy. This game's coming down to the wire. Celtics get the ball. Marcus Smart's at the baseline. And like, he's going up, and Drew Holiday comes up, blocks him, like, takes the ball out of the air. And then he comes down, I think he dribbled once, and then he bounced it off of Marcus Smart out of bounds. Crazy defensive play. Bucks get the ball back. They go score again, and then it's a 3-point ball game. Marcus Smart carrying the ball up court, trying to prevent the foul so they can get a 3-point shot off, try to tie the game. And Drew Holiday comes in, steals the ball again. He looks like the defensive player of the year last night. Obviously, Marcus Smart's a crazy defensive player as well. He won the award. But seeing a performance like that out of Drew Holiday was awesome. And then Giannis is just amazing at this point. This is a dude who's just, it seems like he keeps getting better. He might will the Bucks into the Eastern Conference Finals without Chris Middleton, who's one of the better players on this team. And to see that's just crazy. I'm a big fan of this Bucks team. Obviously, they won the championship last year, went through all they went through last year, and they might make it again this year. It's going to be interesting to see how these next few games kind of play out. And then I want to get into a couple other topics. Tom Brady, the news that Tom Brady is going to sign a massive TV deal came out yesterday. So this is post-playing career, of course. So he's still probably going to play this year. I think it's pretty much set in stone. He's probably going to retire after this next season. But he's signing a 10-year, $375 million contract. This is a deal that will pay him more in the 10 years of the contract than he got paid in his entire NFL career. So it's and obviously, you have to be the GOAT to do this, obviously. But for years, we've talked about Tom Brady taking pay cuts so that his team can stay good. We all know his wife is worth millions on millions of dollars. So it's not like he's ever been in the point I need to capitalize and make as much money as possible. He's been about winning ultimately throughout his entire career, and now he's coming to a point where he's going to retire with the most accolades in NFL history. The records are going to be crazy. The seasons he's played at, everything. And to get a contract like that, people are upset because Tom Brady's never commentated on sports before. And it's do you guys not realize, Michael Jordan retired from basketball and became an owner of a team. And, Tom Brady could do something like that too, but he's deciding to commentate on football. This is the greatest player of all time at the quarterback position. We already see how great Peyton Manning is on the Monday Night Football broadcast. Tony Romo has been phenomenal. Why would anybody think that Tom Brady wouldn't be just as good, if not better? He's Tom Brady. He's clearly the better football player. He's proven throughout his entire NFL career. He works harder than everybody, and he's consistently there. And so I don't understand why anybody's upset about this. It's Tom Brady. At the end of the day, who cares? How much money he's making. None of the people that are upset about this are the ones who are there. It's not like they're losing out on a job position to Tom Brady. And it's not like he's taking money out of their pockets. It's these people, the TV deals are what run the NFL. They're what help boost the salary cap and everything like that. So the TV deal is going to have money to throw around and pay whatever commentator they want. And if Tom Brady, the greatest player ever, decides, hey, I want to get into TV instead of getting into some other kind of avenue, some other business or some other avenue of still being involved in the NFL, then let Tom Brady do it. It's he's the GOAT for a reason. I have no clue why anybody's upset about that, but it's fun news that came out this week as well. And then moving on, I want to kind of touch on the UFC card this weekend. So we just had the pay-per-view last weekend. That was a huge event, a bunch of fun fights. This is going to be one of the ESPN Plus cards, but it has a very good headliner. So the headliner is Jan Blachowicz, and then he's facing Alexander Rakic. And Rakic is one of the up-and-comers at 205. He's one of the younger guys that's, I think he's not necessarily young. I think he's 30, but younger to the division, and he's got a ton of skill. And Blachowicz is the former champion. Like, he just lost his last fight to Glover Teixeira, who's the current champion. So, like, if you're really for either of these guys, whoever wins this fight is probably going to be next in line to fight for the belt. And it's going to be a fun fight. I think Rakic gets a little bit of, like, hate recently because some of his most recent wins were decisions. Like, he had a fight with Thiago Santos that was kind of it wasn't like a really entertaining fight. And then he had another decision before that over Anthony Smith. But those are two high-level 205 fighters. And, like, coming into this, like, he really is a fight away from potentially fighting for the belt. And, like, the matchup, him versus Glover or him versus Yuri, I love both of those matchups. Those would be awesome fights to see. I think Rakic, he's not a fighter who's going to go in and, like, he's not, like, trying to get into a firefight. He's a very good stand-up, like, kickboxer, striker, and he's going to go in there and try to win the fight the way he knows how. And in a lot of his fights, he gets finishes. It's just the last couple opponents he faced, he didn't. So, you know, recency bias draws narratives in sports, and that's kind of what's going on with him. But I'm excited to see how he performs in this one because it is going to be a step up in competition. And then if you're looking at Jan Blachowicz, you're talking about the former light heavyweight champion. This guy has an awesome story. This is a guy who was on the verge of getting cut from the UFC. He finds a dead body in the woods, and there's a rope hanging from it. Some cop says it's good luck if you keep the rope. He keeps the rope and he has it before every fight. And since then he's found this next step in his career. You know, he's in his late 30s, but he's still, you know, performing. And this is where, like, the legendary Polish power comes from. He's from Poland, like, lives a crazy life. There's videos of him, like, in ice lakes and things like that, like, just doing crazy things. And he's coming into this fight, you know, trying to get his belt back. The way that he lost his last fight was kind of difficult. It's tough. It was a tough loss. You know, kind of getting dominated by Glover. And Glover's one of the best, especially on the ground, at 205. So, like, it was a tough fight for Jan. But coming into this, he's a fight away probably from fighting again and trying to get his belt back. So, you know, he's going to come in motivated. And he's a very dangerous fighter. He's got crazy power in his hands, his kicks. I'm very interested to see how this fight plays out. I think it's going to be a fun one to watch. And then I want to talk about a couple other fights that are going to be on this card. Might not be as big names, just some guys to keep a watch for. Jake Hadley, he's making his UFC debut. He's 8-0, and he's facing off against Alan Nascimento. But basically, Jake Hadley was on the Contender Series last year. He didn't make weight. He was I think he might be the only fighter to not make weight, still get a contract because he had a good performance. But he's young. He's 25 years old. He's undefeated. He's got a ton of potential at 125. He's already trying to, you know, kind of like plan a future fight with Muhammad Makayev. And that's another guy who's young and also, like, potential, you know, champion in the future. So I'm curious to see how his debut goes. His opponent, Nascimento, he's got a lot more fight experience, but not a lot more UFC experience. He's still kind of new to the UFC. I don't think he's won a fight in the UFC yet, so that's going to be an interesting fight. And then Michael Johnson versus Alan Patrick. Michael Johnson's just a fun guy to watch. I realize he's been on a couple fight losing streak. He's lost 4 in a row. But he's a guy that's always going to show up. He's always going to try to perform. You know, some of these guys, like, I'm going to try to put you out or you might put me out. And, like, he's had some wars in the past with some big name fighters. Like, I mean, he fought Habib, he fought Poirier, Gaethje. Like, he's had some crazy great fights with all those guys. He's way better than his record says. He's 20-17, but he's a much better fighter than that record would indicate. And then Alan Patrick, he's 15-3, but he's also on a losing streak. He lost 2 in a row, and then he had a no contest loss. I think it was an eye poke to Mason Jones last year. So I think this is going to be a very fun fight. I think it's something that could go out with a finish. And then the last fight I want to talk about on this card that I'm interested to see, Nick Maximov versus Andre Petroski. So Nick Maximov is 8-0. I think he's 24 years old. He trains with the Diaz brothers, and it's funny because he sounds just like them. He sounds a lot like them, the way he talks and everything. And then Andre Petroski, he's 7-2. He's a little bit older. I think he's about 30. He was one of my favorite fighters on the Ultimate Fighter last season, and the interesting thing about this fight is they are both heavy grapplers. Both of them are very good wrestlers, and when you have a matchup like that, a lot of those fights they end up all on the feet. So it could be like a heavy grappling approach matchup maybe, but a lot of those matchups also end up like who's the better guy on the feet. And truly, I don't know. I've seen the last few fights of both of them. I think it's hard to gauge at this point. So I think that's going to be a fun, interesting matchup. Both of those guys have a ton of potential in this division. I'm definitely looking forward to it. Andre Petroski, the UFC says he's 7-2. Other like Sherdog and everything else says he's 7-1. One of his losses that it's weird because the Ultimate Fighter, until you get to the finale, those are supposed to be exhibition matches, but for some reason the UFC counts some of the losses as total losses on their UFC record. So like Bryce Mitchell, for example, I think he's one of the guys that he's never officially lost a fight, and I think he might have even won the Ultimate Fighter. But he's a guy that the UFC lists him as a one-loss fighter. And Andre Petroski, it seems like he's kind of fallen into the same boat. He did lose the exhibition fight against Brian Battle, who eventually ended up winning the Ultimate Fighter season. But apart from that, he looked great. He's fought twice in the UFC so far. He got finishes in both fights. So I'm definitely interested to see how this plays out. And then outside of the UFC, the NFL schedules are going to release soon. There has been some leaks. They've leaked saying the Jets are going to play the Ravens in week 1 at home. I want to see the rest of the schedule before I do a full video breaking down everything. But initially, Ravens are a tough matchup for the Jets week 1. Lamar Jackson, one of the better QBs in the AFC, and the Ravens have made a lot of good moves this offseason. So have the Jets. The Jets are going to be, I think, they have potential to be a very improved team. But week 1 is going to be a tough matchup. So we are right off the bat, we're going to see how much better is Zach Wilson and how much better is this offense and defense as a whole. Because they've made a lot of changes this offseason. So I'm very interested to see how that plays out. But like I said, once the rest of the schedule releases, I'll go through, break down a little bit more of that. But if you like the video, if you enjoy any of the content, basketball, football, UFC, I do cover boxing and some other events here on the channel as well. Please like and subscribe. It means a lot. And thanks for tuning in.